Want to stay up to date with everything that's happening on the show? Or do you have a story that you'd like to submit for one of our Listener Stories episodes? You can get in touch with the show via the website at www.hauntedukpodcast.com, on Instagram at hauntedukpodcast, on X at hauntedukpod, or you can email us at contactus@hauntedukpodcast.com. We're also on Facebook and TikTok. And if you want to support the show, you can do it via either Patreon or Ko-fi. Both platforms have exactly the same content, but work in slightly different ways. One of the advantages of Patreon is its sleek user interface, but if you want to avoid those pesky additional charges Apple, Google, and Patreon apply to your subscription, then why not give Ko-fi a try? Simply open a browser window and type ko-fi/Haunted UK Podcast. That's Ko-fi/Haunted UK Podcast, and you'll soon find us. Whichever platform you choose, we're sure you'll enjoy the bonus content. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the episode. Eddie Bell was told about a series of tunnels which ran under the coke works, and it was these tunnels which Eddie felt could have been the ideal place for something like a large predatory animal to hide out in. Taking matters into his own hands, he ventured down into a number of tunnels, but found nothing. Until, that is, he stumbled upon one tunnel. This is episode 54 of the Haunted UK podcast, and in this episode, we'll hear stories about strange and frightening creatures which are said to be roaming the countryside in the UK. You'd have to go all the way back to the 11th century and the Middle Ages to run into a wild bear or a wild boar in the UK. Both species were hunted to extinction and have never been reintroduced to our shores. It's fitting to say that both of these animals, especially the bear, would have been the apex predators of the UK if they'd been left here to survive. But that wasn't the case. The largest predator on land in the UK now is the common badger, and they're very secretive animals who tend to steer clear of contact with humans. So it seems that our little island is a picture of peace, where the wildlife is no longer a threat to its human inhabitants. But that may not be entirely true. For hundreds of years, sightings of strange creatures roaming our countryside have been witnessed on so many occasions. And as technology has advanced and given us things such as smartphones, these sightings are now often caught on camera or video. But what do they show us? Many believe that a species of big cat, such as a puma or jaguar, could be prowling around the hills and valleys of the United Kingdom, feeding on animals such as sheep. The fact is that if you know your surroundings well enough and have a source of food, water, and shelter, you can survive in the wild, especially if you have the hunting skills of a cat, if that's what these creatures are. But instead of second-guessing what witnesses have seen, let's take a deeper look into some of the most convincing cases and sightings of these strange and elusive animals, whatever they may be. Sightings have been reported in places all over the UK, such as Cannock Chase, Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, the Pennines, the Yorkshire Dales, and many others. But we'll start with a case in the 90s that centred around the countryside and farms of Durham, in the north of England. Farmer Helen Allinson had seen all the usual wildlife at her farm over the years, such as deer and badgers, but nothing could prepare her for what she witnessed in the dark early hours of one particular morning, whilst making her way to her lambing shed. Helen said that a large dark shape was lying down near a hedgerow a short distance from where she was. Being curious, she decided to try and approach it, but as she got closer, it stood up onto all fours and disappeared through the hedge. Helen was convinced that it was some type of very large exotic cat. She described it as having a shiny black coat of fur and large eyes. She also noticed that it seemed to be muscular and powerful, displaying the large shoulder blade movement of typical large cats. It was the first and only time that she witnessed the creature, but she wasn't the only one to see it. There have been over 180 documented sightings of the Beast of Durham, with some stretching back into the mid-80s, and it was a man named Robert Davis, who at the time was a lorry driver for Fishburn Coke Works, who had one of the very first sightings of the creature. Robert can still recall in great detail his sighting back in 1986. As he was in the coke yard, he witnessed a large cat-like animal clear a 10-foot pile of coal in one leap. He described it as being around 6 feet long, with sandy-coloured fur, which he noticed looked dirty. Robert put this down to the coke dust that was commonplace in the yard. According to him, this was no ordinary domesticated cat, and he's seen nothing like it since. The police were called, and it was Sergeant Eddie Bell who attended. Eddie was Durham Police's wildlife officer, so was used to seeing all types of animals on his travels around the country lanes and farms of the area. But even he admitted that what Robert Davis had encountered was something completely out of the ordinary. As he took a walk around the locations where the creature was seen, he noticed a number of dead seagulls which looked like they'd been caught and eaten by something. He concluded that whatever the predator was, it was a very skilled hunter, very quick and very athletic. Eddie was also told about a series of tunnels which ran under the coke works, and it was these tunnels which Eddie felt could have been the ideal place for something like a large predatory animal to hide out in. Taking matters into his own hands, he ventured down into a number of tunnels, but found nothing, until he stumbled upon one tunnel which was around 4 feet high and 4 feet wide. It stretched back into the darkness for a good 25 to 30 feet, so with his torch in hand, Eddie Bell began to crawl down the tunnel, hoping that something wasn't at the other end. The only way in or out of this tunnel was the access point used by Eddie, so if there was something down there, it would have to come past him to get out. As he got closer to the end of the tunnel, he noticed a series of very large cat-like paw prints in the dust on the tunnel floor. Eddie even stated that these prints were so big that he was relieved that whatever had made them wasn't in the tunnel at the time. But it was now clear that there was indeed a large predatory animal roaming around Durham, and the main question which was being asked was, would it attack a human? Eddie Bell had been cataloguing and interviewing the many witnesses that had encountered the beast, but it would be another 7 years before the next positive sighting would be reported. A farmer in the village of Walton was woken up at around 1:30 a.m. when his security lights were activated. He heard a commotion coming from a field close by which contained sheep and lambs. Thinking that it may have been a dog or badger, he went back to sleep, choosing to investigate in the morning. Making his way into the field, he came across a sheep which had been deftly stripped of all its flesh. There was no sign of any blood whatsoever. This detail concerned the farmer. When he had been witness to other sheep attacks, there was always somewhat of a mess which surrounded the carcass, but this was oddly clean. Again, it was Sergeant Eddie Bell who was called out to the scene. Immediately, he noticed a few things which he felt was connected to the kill at the cokeworks 7 years previously. The kill was clean. There were no bite marks or broken bones, and the flesh of the sheep looked like it had been licked off by whatever had killed it. All these things pointed to a very large cat-like creature. But there was one more clue to come. On the outskirts of the village, Eddie discovered more prints, the same size and with the same features as the ones he'd found in the tunnel at the cokeworks. Eddie decided to bring in crime scene investigator Ian Wilkinson to get his opinion. Wilkinson made a cast of the print and noticed that whatever had made it must have been quite heavy due to the depression in the substrate. Judging by the size of the print and the configuration of the pads and claws, Wilkinson agreed with Eddie Bell that what they were dealing with was some sort of very large cat. So large, in fact, that Wilkinson estimated its size as being that of a lion. Could it be possible that a creature the size of a lion had been wandering around Durham's countryside and farm for years without being positively identified? One other piece of evidence which was sent off to experts for possible identification was the fecal matter found near the sheep's carcass. After waiting a while for this information to come back to him, Eddie received a call. He said he will never forget what the person on the other end of the phone said to him. He was told that if the stools would have been found on the Serengeti, then that wouldn't have been a surprise at all. But because they were found in Durham, it was very disturbing. The expert informed Eddie that the stools resembled those of either a leopard or a puma. Eddie then visited a zoo which had pumas and asked if a cast could be made of their prints. When compared to the cast which was made of the print found on the outskirts of Walton, they were almost an exact match. Eddie was also informed that pumas live and adapt to many habitats, such as rainforests, deserts, and even mountains, so it would be no surprise to find that a puma had been happily living in the countryside of Durham. But how did it get there? And could there be a breeding population? In 1976, the Wild Animals Act was passed by Parliament, and with it came very strict controls which had to be adhered to if you wanted to keep exotic animals, such as big cats, as pets. Before this act was brought in, literally anyone could openly buy all types of animals like lions and tigers and keep them in private collections, as long as they had the money to do it. But when the Wild Animals Act was brought in, it became increasingly more and more difficult to do this. Stringent laws had to be observed, and with these laws came extra costs. Instead of donating their animals to zoos or having them put down, many owners decided to free them into the UK countryside, where they could still be today. As well as sending the stool samples off to experts to be examined, the sheep's carcass was sent off to the Ministry of Agriculture for further investigation. But in a strange twist, Sergeant Eddie Bell never saw the report. He chased it many times until he was finally told that it was classified and would never be released. Why would the Ministry of Agriculture do this? To avoid panic? Or for some other sinister reason? We'll never know, but Eddie Bell didn't need to see this report, because he had his own sighting shortly after, and his was a very close encounter. Late one Christmas Eve, Eddie was driving home after his shift. He was tired and cold and couldn't wait to get into the comfort of his own bed. He recalls that he was around 2 miles away from home when the headlights of his patrol car lit up the eyes of something a short distance away crossing the road. As he got closer, he could clearly see that it was a puma, which was now sitting down at the edge of the road. Eddie carefully drove past and pulled over just a matter of a few yards away from the animal, but as he got out of his car, it became aware of him coming towards it. It then began to make its way through the hedgerow and across a ploughed field, where Eddie Bell watched it disappear into the darkness. At first, he wanted to pursue the animal, but didn't have a torch or a camera to take pictures of it, so instead he plunged a stick into the ground at the edge of the road where it had gone through the hedge. Eddie then got back into his car and completed his journey home. He did admit that after he woke up in the morning, he thought that he'd dreamt the whole incident, until he went back to where it took place, and sure enough, there was the stick in the ground. Sightings are still reported to this day, but less frequently now. It's extremely unlikely that today's sightings are the same puma, as they only live to around 15 years in the wild and up to 25 years in captivity. But that's not to say that there isn't a breeding population out there. These creatures have been spotted all over the UK, but none are as infamous as the Beast of Exmoor. Exmoor National Park stretches from West Somerset to North Devon and covers an area of around 267 square miles. It's made up of a mixture of woodlands, rivers, heather-covered moorland, farms and fields. It is an extremely beautiful part of England, but as far back as the 1970s, a strange creature began roaming this picturesque landscape, bringing with it uncertainty and death. Sightings began, coincidentally, not long after the Wild Animals Act was passed in 1976. People reported seeing a large predatory cat-like creature roaming the hills and moorlands of Exmoor, but it wasn't until 1983 that the legend of the Beast of Exmoor was really born. South Malton farmer Eric Lay had his life turned upside down by the death of around 100 of his sheep over a 3-month period. Every single one of these sheep died from severe, violent throat injuries, and the manner in which these injuries were inflicted was very much how a large predatory cat would take down its prey. Eric Lay wasn't the only farmer who'd suffered terrible losses to his livestock. Other farmers were also falling victims to the attacks, and it wasn't long before complaints started flooding into the Ministry of Agriculture. As they weighed up the options, theories of where the beast could have its lair soon started to circulate. It was widely believed that, similarly to the animal that terrorized Durham, that the beast could be hiding in abandoned mining works in the area. This proposed a huge problem. How could farmers not only keep an eye on livestock, but also try to track down and either capture or kill this animal? Sightings and attacks continued, with witnesses reporting a creature with cat-like features, but much bigger than any domesticated cat. It was described as being black or dark grey in colour, closely resembling a panther or puma. Estimates of its size ranged from between 1 and 2 meters from nose to tail. It was at this point that the Ministry of Agriculture did something completely unexpected. They sent in the Royal Marines and their sharpshooters to track down and kill the beast. Day after day and night after night in 1988, the Marines would keep watch, hoping to catch sight of this elusive creature. And on a few occasions, some of the Marines reported seeing fleeting glimpses of it. Over the course of their stakeout, no shots were fired, as none of the soldiers who said they'd seen the beast could get a clear shot. But it was clear that just their mere presence was disturbing the animal's hunting habits, and the number of attacks decreased drastically. The Marines were soon called back into active duty, and for a while, all remained calm. But it didn't stay like this for long. With the soldiers out of the way, the beast began killing again, and with the attack count rising, the sightings also increased. One sighting happened to a man named Trevor Beer, who was birdwatching on the moors. At the time, he was in a prime hunting location, used by the beast, and after a short while, he saw a large black cat emerge from some bushes directly into his line of sight. But Trevor Beer wasn't just your everyday ordinary witness. Trevor was an OBE, a member of the Ministry of Defence's Conservation Group, awarded the Gavin Maxwell Award for Otter Conservation, and was quite a prolific author. But there was something else about Trevor Beer. You see, Trevor had seen large black cats on Exmoor numerous times, and he was 100% positive that there were both black leopards and pumas roaming around the moors and living happily and mostly undisturbed. According to Trevor Beer, several reported sightings allege that some of these animals were even seen with cubs, substantiating the theory further that there could indeed be a breeding population. As the years have gone by, sightings have become few and far between, but that doesn't mean that these strange creatures aren't still out there. In July 2018, 72-year-old David Glidden was out walking on Exmoor with his daughter when he had an encounter that he'll remember for the rest of his life. After their walk, David got back in his car and began his journey home. He was driving between Trentishue and Heddon's Mouth when suddenly a very large dark-coloured animal ran out onto the road ahead. It then jumped up onto a wall just a matter of a few yards away from David's car. Completely stunned by what he was potentially looking at, David immediately stopped his car, got out, and ran to the wall where the creature had been. By the time David had got to the wall, he said that the animal had ran towards some bracken and disappeared. Being a keen wildlife spotter, David knew what he had just witnessed: the Beast of Exmoor. David described the creature as being larger in size than a Labrador, with a tail at least 2 feet long, which was the same width from start to finish. He said that it was a mixture of brown and grey in colour, with patches of a green type of colour all over it. David stated that he'd been on safari in Africa and had seen a leopard from a distance, and the creature that he had just witnessed, which had run out onto the road and leapt up onto the wall, displayed almost identical characteristics. So what are the opinions of the people who look after Exmoor National Park? Do they truly believe that big cats could be roaming the hills? Well, Dan Barnett, head of the Exmoor National Park Ranger team, said, quote, "For decades there have been sightings of big cat-like creatures out on the moor, fueling the legend of the Beast of Exmoor. There's no way of knowing what these people saw, but big cats living in the national park is certainly an intriguing possibility." End quote. Not far from Exmoor is Bodmin Moor in the northeast of Cornwall. Although it's not as big as Exmoor, being around 80 square miles, its landscape is very similar. You'll find the beginnings of many of Cornwall's rivers here, and with areas of woodland, farmland and moorland, it's the perfect place for a large predatory animal to hide out and make its home. Like Exmoor, Bodmin Moor is also the location of many abandoned copper and tin mines, again, making it perfect for something to find shelter and seclusion in. It's been theorized that whatever has been witnessed on Exmoor has somehow made its way to Bodmin. Whether that is offspring of these creatures, it isn't known, but it certainly is an interesting theory. But a far more interesting one is that these big cats were originally part of a zoological collection, until they were released into the wild on purpose. It was 1978, and Mary Chipperfield, who had been a world-renowned exotic animal trainer and circus performer, had just loaded 5 fully grown pumas into the back of her van. Her beloved Plymouth Zoo had been forced to close down due to declining visitor numbers, but also because of major concerns regarding alleged animal cruelty and inadequate living conditions. Many animals had to be rehomed, and amongst these were 5 young, fully grown pumas. Of these 5, 2 were a breeding pair, who were Mary's favourites. Mary had come to an agreement with Dartmoor Wildlife Park, now Dartmoor Zoological Park, for them to take ownership of the 5 pumas and rehome them there. But it didn't quite happen the way it was planned. As Mary arrived at Dartmoor Wildlife Park, she was directed to where the pumas would be housed. Ellis Dorr, who was the owner of the wildlife park at the time, noticed straight away that there was something wrong, and immediately asked Mary Chipperfield why there were only 2 pumas in the van and not 5. Where were the other 3? Mary's excuse was suspicious, to say the least. She said that she'd broken down on the way to the wildlife park, and in the process of getting her van up and running again, 3 of the pumas escaped. Because this was 1978, Mary wasn't even required to inform the authorities that these animals had escaped. It wasn't until 1981 that the law was changed, making the release of exotic pets into the wild illegal. So this matter was literally forgotten about. The 3 pumas that allegedly escaped were the breeding pair and another young male. Mary Chipperfield and her husband Roger, who were convicted in 1999 of cruelty to animals, always denied that these events had taken place. But current Dartmoor Zoological Park owner Ben Mee confirmed via paperwork that only 2 of the 5 pumas ever arrived. But could this breeding pair, along with a young male, really be enough to sustain a population of pumas for over 40 years? According to the scientists, no. But according to cryptozoologists, yes. And you only have to look at the sightings on Bodmin Moor to get confirmation of this. In the mid-1990s, after around 12 years of complaining, livestock loss and grisly discoveries, a man named Charlie Wilson from the Agricultural Development Advisory Service was given the task of investigating the many sightings of the Beast of Bodmin Moor. Evidence included written reports and video footage of a creature which many farmers and locals described as either a leopard, a panther, or a puma, or all 3. You see, the people of Bodmin firmly believed that the land and their livestock were being stalked and terrorized by up to 17 of these large and dangerous big cats, and they wanted someone in the seats of power to finally sit up and take notice. Rosemary Rhodes, who owns and operates Nine Stones Farm, was used to finding sheep which had literally been torn to pieces. She's seen the beast firsthand and describes its eyes as being like great yellow orbs. She also mentions that it emits a terrible scream, like a woman's, but 100 times magnified. Rosemary is also certain that the identity of these creatures is being kept under wraps. After capturing footage of a very large black cat-like creature near her farmhouse, she went to investigate the area and discovered a number of strange hairs. She sent the hairs to the National Farmers Union with the hopes of them being analysed and an identity of whatever this creature was finally being established. But that's not how it turned out. Not one representative from the National Farmers Union would give her an answer, and she found herself being frustratingly stonewalled. In the end, the losses to her flock of sheep became so high that she ended up selling the rest of them off to avoid further financial heartache. She's not the only farmer who feels the same way. John Goodenough of nearby Goodhaver Farm has also had several encounters with the Beast of Bodmin Moor. He describes that every kill made by the beast is almost identical in characteristics. For instance, if it's a sheep, There's no wool strewn about all over the place. The animal singles its prey out, kills it, eats it, and leaves very little mess. He also knows exactly when the beast is close by. He describes the atmosphere of the immediate area as going deadly quiet. No foxes, no rabbits, and even more chilling, no birdsong. He attributes this to the animals making a joint call for caution, that there is something nearby that is a huge and deadly threat. Local builder Steve Parkin had a very close encounter with one of these beasts near Outer Predicum Farm. It was around 1 a.m. and after hearing noises, Steve and a friend decided to grab a light and go and investigate. They soon noticed something large balancing on a nearby fence. As they approached it, the creature jumped off the fence and headed towards a patch of forest. Steve described the creature as making a very strange squeaky and squealing type noise as it continued to get closer to the cover of the forest. They both stopped and crouched down. They shone the light in the creature's direction, and rather eerily, it caught the reflectiveness of its eyes as it looked back at them. It then accelerated into the forest, and they never saw it again. Charlie Wilson never really got to the bottom of the sightings of these mysterious creatures, and many felt that he never stood a chance of solving the issues from the very beginning. It came to light that Mr. Wilson had been given a budget of just £8,200 and a window of only 26 days in which to collect, study, and assemble all of the evidence that he could find and present it to his peers. Farmers and locals still feel, even today, that the government took the easy way out and instead gave the verdict that there was insufficient evidence to prove the existence of large predatory cats on the moors. But others know better. So, after all of these sightings and the evidence that has been put forward, it seems highly likely that there could be a breeding population of large cats out in the wilds of the UK. But what other strange creatures could be out there? Well, what about a Bigfoot-type cryptid? Surprisingly, many sightings of a similar creature to Bigfoot have been reported throughout the United Kingdom, but one of the most famous is that of the legendary Scottish big grey man of Ben Macdui. Located in amongst the Cairngorms, Ben Macdui is the second highest mountain in the United Kingdom, but the highest mountain in the Cairngorms, with a summit of 4,295 feet. For hundreds of years, this mountain has been the subject of numerous sightings of a creature resembling that of the Himalayan Yeti. Around 8 feet tall, powerfully built, and covered with a thick layer of grey fur. Many encounters with this mystical creature have been fleeting, but there are a few which seem to give some credibility to the possibility that something strange does indeed roam on this remote mountain. At a meeting of the Cairngorm Club in 1925, Professor Norman Colley stood up and told his fellow club members a story which shocked and disturbed them all. The events of the story took place in 1891, when Professor Colley was climbing Ben Macdui alone. The following statement is taken directly from the minutes of that meeting.
I was returning from a cairn on the summit in the mist when I began to think I heard something else other than my own footsteps. For every few steps I took, I heard a crunch, and then another crunch, as if someone was walking after me, but taking footsteps 3 or 4 times the length of my own. I said to myself, this is all nonsense. I listened and heard it again, but could see nothing in the mist. As I walked on and the eerie crunch, crunch sounded behind me, I was seized with terror and took to my heels, staggering blindly among the boulders for 4 or 5 miles, nearly down to Rothermurch's forest. Whatever you make of it, I do not know, but there is something very queer at the top of Ben Macdui, and I will not go there again by myself, I know.
Around the same time when this incident took place, mountaineer Henry Kellis was climbing Ben Macdui with his brother when they both witnessed what they described as a giant hair-covered figure within a short distance of their position. In complete shock and panic, they quickly made their way down the mountain and to safety, but this sighting was never officially verified. But others were. In the book Always a Little Further, published in 1939, author Alistair Borthwick described two very similar encounters which took place on Ben Macdui. The first involved a climber who had actually made the summit of the mountain and was on his descent. Mist was all around him, and as he was walking in the crisp snow, he began to notice the sound of footsteps which seemed to be following him. As with other encounters, this climber stated that the footsteps were not in time with his own, but were instead occurring once every 3 to 4 steps that he made. So whatever was making these footsteps seemed to have an incredibly long stride. The climber also noticed that when he stopped, the footsteps stopped, but he was certain that they weren't simple echoes of his own footsteps, because not every step echoed. The second encounter happened in broad daylight on a bright summer day, but visibility was extremely poor due to a thick mist that cloaked the mountain. This second climber was using a compass to help him navigate, and as he walked, he also began to hear footsteps, and these were very close by. As with the previous encounter, these footsteps weren't in time with his, but instead were happening once with every 2 to 3 steps that he was taking. But it was when the thick mist suddenly lifted and bright sunlight bathed the mountain that the climber became most confused. As far as he could see, there was nobody up there with him. So what or who was following him? When Alistair Borthwick himself was climbing Ben Macdui with a group of local stalkers and gamekeepers, his curiosity towards the tales of the big grey man got the better of him. He asked his companions what they thought of the sighting and if they believed them. Their answer was short and simple: "We do not talk about that." It was in 1943, however, that the most startling and terrifying sighting took place. It was October, and climber Alexander Tunian was ascending the mountain and well on the way to making the summit. He was carrying a loaded revolver, which he was going to use on his way back down if he were to encounter any game. This would make a welcoming meal after such a strenuous and cold day of climbing. After he'd reached the summit, the weather turned and mist began to roll in. He was also aware of a storm that had been forecast for later that day, so hastily began his descent. He soon began to get the feeling that he wasn't alone, and as he made his way down a trail which led to Glenderry, he said that a huge looming figure made its way out of the mist and straight towards him. This creature was huge, covered in thick hair, and was incredibly muscular. Tunian reached for his revolver,
Stop!
and fired 3 shots directly at the beast. But it still kept coming.
Oh my good God!
It was at this point that Tunian began running down the trail and apparently made Glenderry in record time. For the rest of his life, he was convinced that what he encountered on Ben Macdui on that cold October day in 1943 was the Big Grey Man. So is it just in the remote areas of the Cairngorm Mountains that strange and terrifying beasts are encountered? Well, apparently not. Around 460 miles from the Cairngorm National Park is the town of Thetford in Norfolk. And it's in the dense forests surrounding this town that a strange and terrifying creature has been seen on a number of occasions. In June 1986, a witness who was driving between Thetford and East Reetham spotted something completely out of the ordinary close to the road. A large animal, greyish-white in colour, with large eyes and small ears, was stood on all fours. It had a long dog-like snout, and the hair on its body was quite long as well. Not believing what they'd seen, the witness drove further up the road, turned around, and drove past again to see if the creature was still there, and it was. 2 more times the witness drove back past this huge dog-like creature, but it was on the last pass that whatever this thing was, it created a sense of fear and foreboding for the witness, with chills so visceral it made the hairs on their arms stand up. By now the creature was very aware of the car driving past, so it stood up onto its hind legs to reveal its true size. This thing was massive, at least 7 to 8 feet tall, and as you can imagine, the witness didn't turn around again to get another look. The same creature was spotted again in December of 2007, the only difference being that the witness said that the hair was a dark grey colour with black patches. But it was many years before this sighting that a very similar cryptid was witnessed by a couple back in 1992 in a very famous forest. Around 48 miles away lies the site of the United Kingdom's equivalent of America's Roswell, the Rendlesham Forest incident. For those unaware of what went on in Rendlesham Forest, we'll briefly go through the events that captured the imagination of the world. In December 1980, a security patrol at RAF Woodbridge in Suffolk reported seeing strange unidentified lights in nearby Rendlesham Forest. Now, even though this was a Royal Air Force base, the United States Air Force was stationed there, and over a period of 3 days, between the 26th and 28th of December, multiple US servicemen would report seeing UFOs. Initially, the lights were thought to have been a downed aircraft, so a patrol was sent into the forest to investigate. They reported seeing a solid metal object, which not only glowed, but also had coloured lights on it and strange hieroglyphic-type markings. It was assumed by the patrol, and this was also backed up in the official report written by the Deputy Base Commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, who also witnessed the unidentified aircraft, that it was under the influence of intelligent control, because as the servicemen approached it, it would move through the trees. As morning broke on the 26th of December, the patrol returned to the forest and to the site of the encounter to see if they could gather any evidence. They found strange burn marks on several trees where they said the UFO passed nearby. Broken branches were also noted, but it was the 3 impressions which were found on the forest floor that raised the most concern. Had this craft actually landed in Rendlesham Forest? More sightings occurred on the 27th of December, but it was on the 28th that Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt would witness the UFO for himself, as well as other unexplained lights in the sky. Going back out into the forest in the evening, Charles Holt was accompanied by a small group of servicemen after the alarm was raised by other witnesses that the mysterious aircraft was back. Radiation readings were taken at the site of the first encounter, and these were found to be higher than normal background radiation. Livestock at nearby farms would also strangely display frenzied behavior when the aircraft was nearby. Charles Holt took a microcassette recorder to document the evening's events, and it's this tape, as well as Holt's official report, that became world famous. Had those American servicemen really seen a UFO? To this day, the debate rages on, with skeptics saying that the lights which were witnessed over that period of 3 days could easily be explained away as debris burning up in the Earth's atmosphere from a meteor. Very bright stars were also put forward as culprits for some of the phenomena witnessed, as well as the Orford Ness Lighthouse a few miles away. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt, however, states that stars, meteors, and the Orford Ness Lighthouse don't move between trees at close quarters. He fiercely stands by his account even today, and his story has never changed. Whatever happened in 1980 at Rendlesham Forest still remains a mystery, but ever since those events took place, witnesses have reported seeing strange, unidentified, and sometimes terrifying creatures there. So let's go back to that couple in 1992 and their sighting. Camped out in Rendlesham Forest, the couple had enjoyed a day of exploring and walking, and after a good meal cooked at their campsite, they bedded down for the evening. In the early hours, they were woken up by the sound of movement coming from outside near their tent. As they listened, whatever it was began making sniffing and grunting sounds. The couple decided to investigate, so unzipped the tent door and peered out. And what they saw defied belief. Rummaging around their outdoor cooking area was a huge creature on all fours, covered in shaggy, long, dark hair. Not knowing what to do, they shone their torch directly at the beast, at which point it stood up onto its hind legs. Now at its full height, the couple estimated it being between 7 to 8 feet tall, with long arms, covered in hair, and facial features similar to that of a baboon. It looked straight at them, growled loudly, then darted at speed into the dense forest. To this day, the couple have no idea what this creature was, but are adamant that they definitely saw it. The counties of Norfolk and Suffolk also have a concentration of sightings of a creature from folklore, Black Shuck. This legendary beast has stalked the counties of Norfolk and Suffolk since around the 16th century and is seen by many as a messenger of impending death or bad luck. Described as a spectral hound, Black Shuck is said to be as large as a calf, with a terrifying and deafening howl, but can move in complete silence. In 1577, clergyman and author Abraham Fleming described the terrible and horrific deaths of several churchgoers at St. Mary's Church in Bungay, Suffolk, as they were ripped to shreds by a huge black demonic dog. Earlier that same day, Black Shuck had also attacked and killed members of the congregation of the Holy Trinity Church in Blythburgh. In another incident which was reported in 1893, a man and his travel companion were riding along a lane in Rockland near the Norfolk Broads, when a dog, much larger than anything they'd ever seen before, crossed their path. The driver of the carriage took no notice of this huge animal and deliberately continued along the lane, taking no action to avoid it. The man's companion warned him of the consequences of hitting the creature, but the driver was intent on running the beast over. As the carriage made contact with the massive dog, the air was suddenly filled with flames and an extremely strong smell of sulfur. The two men then watched as the animal disappeared. Not long after this event, the driver suddenly died. Maybe he should have heeded the warning given to him by his companion. Not far from Rendlesham Forest is an area known as the Sandlings. It's an area of heathland and forest with picturesque walks which wind their way through the landscape, but it's also an area where witnesses have reported seeing something strange. It was a cold but beautiful sunny day in January 1956, and Sam Holland was out with his dog Harry, taking in a brisk walk through the Sandlings. As they approached the wooded area, Sam noticed something moving inside the tree line, around 40 feet ahead of him. He stopped and watched for a while, and was stunned to see a huge muscular creature on all fours. Sam described this creature as being at least 10 feet long, with a coat of thick black glossy hair. Initially, he thought it was something that had escaped from a local zoo, but he'd never seen an animal like it before in his life. Suddenly, it turned to look at him, staring directly into his eyes, and Sam was shocked to see a face similar to that of a gorilla. Its eyes had an intelligence behind them, and Sam found this to be quite disturbing. He also described the creature as having a thick neck with massive, powerful jaws, and was fully expecting it to make a run at him and his dog. But it didn't. Instead, it calmly turned away and vanished deep into the woodland. Another sighting of a creature very similar to the one witnessed by Sam Holland was seen 7 years later by Peggy Cushing, in almost exactly the same location. She described the beast as having a shimmering type of quality as she stared at it in horror. But then she said something completely unexpected happened. The creature somehow shapeshifted, right before her eyes, into what she could only describe as a huge winged gargoyle. It then took to the air and vanished into the darkness. So what could this creature be? Many people in the area have identified it as the shug monkey, and sightings have been reported for decades. It was first brought to the attention of a wider audience when it was mentioned in James Wentworth Day's book Here Are Ghosts and Witches, published in 1954. But could this strange beast have a deeper connection with the surrounding area? Let's not forget that just 26 years later, the Rendlesham Forest UFO incident took place very close to where the shug monkey sightings have been reported. Photographic evidence of strange, large, unidentified footprints have also been doing the rounds, with many cryptozoologists comparing it to black shuck or even some type of werewolf. And speaking of werewolves, we'll end this episode by travelling up to Hull and the Yorkshire Wolds to hear about multiple sightings of a terrifying creature, widely believed to be some sort of half-man, half-dog hybrid. It's common knowledge that wild wolves roamed the British countryside for thousands of years, but they were hunted to extinction by around 1680, when the last wolf was allegedly killed in Scotland by Sir Ewan Cameron. Sightings did continue though, right up until the 18th century, and there is even talk today of wolves being reintroduced into parts of the UK to help control the red deer population. It's widely believed and accepted that wild wolves made their way to the United Kingdom across the land bridge, which stretched from Europe to our coastlines during the last ice age, some 12,000 years ago. Back then, herds of animals such as elk would migrate to the UK, bringing with them packs of wolves who would naturally follow a reliable and plentiful food source. But in amongst those large numbers of wolves who made their long journey to our shores, could it be possible that another wolf-like creature joined them and is still present to this day? A beast so terrifying that we dedicated an entire episode to it in Season 2, the werewolf. The Barmston Drain in Hull has a very dark and checkered history. It was built in 1798 as part of a larger project to help the drainage of the salt marshes and is around 23 miles long. Today, it's a beauty spot, with long walks which are enjoyed by many members of the public. But it wasn't always like this. Over 100 people have officially drowned in the drain, including some with harrowing backstories. In December of 1892, a man named George Sowen murdered his 2 children who were just 4 and 6 years old. Not knowing what to do with the bodies, he threw them into the drain waters and then followed them in by jumping in himself and committing suicide. Earlier that same year, the body of an unidentified young boy was also found and recovered from the drain, and earlier still, a young couple who were deeply in love tied their hands together and jumped into the water, also drowning. Deaths, either deliberate or accidental, were becoming so regular that it was even considered by authorities that lifeguards should be stationed along the drain to stop people from entering the water. But this never came to fruition. So, with all of the deaths which surrounded this location, it's no surprise when people began reporting sightings of ghosts, black-eyed children, and strange creatures. Reports of a werewolf-type hybrid creature prowling around the area of Barmstone Drain aren't a recent phenomenon. As far back as the 18th century, sightings were recorded of a beast known as Old Stinker, which would terrorize locals, kill farm cattle and wildlife, but a more recent collection of sightings may go some way to prove that the werewolf isn't just something derived from folklore. In August 2016, 24-year-old Gemma Waller was driving through Halsham, East Yorkshire with two friends when they had an encounter they'll never forget. As they casually chatted, Gemma noticed a shape sat at the side of the road and alerted her friends to it by pointing it out. Initially, she thought it was a large fox, but as Gemma slowed down to get a better look at the strange form, she and her passengers were completely shocked when the fox stood up onto its hind legs. They quickly realized that this was no fox, but was a huge creature covered in grey hair that began to make its way towards the car. It was at least 8 feet tall, powerfully built with chilling human-like facial features. Gemma reported that the creature was almost as big as the Ford Ka which she was driving. Planting her foot down hard on the accelerator, Gemma sped away from this nightmarish sight as quickly as possible, never looking back. Whilst the experience had a profound effect on the three friends, no one was attacked or hurt. But that could be said for an encounter which took place in the 1960s in the same area. A truck driver was traveling down a quiet road one evening when he recalled seeing what looked like 2 red lights at the side of the road. As he approached these lights, he slowed down to see if he could get a better look at them, but to his horror, he quickly realized that they weren't lights. They were the eyes of a massive wolf-like beast. As the truck got closer to the creature, it suddenly leapt from the roadside and onto the front of the truck. Watching in complete terror and disbelief, the driver then said that the creature began to pound its fists against the windscreen in an effort to gain entry, but gave up after a short while and disappeared back into the darkness of the night. Moving back to 2016, another extremely frightening encounter took place very close to the drain itself. The witness claimed to have actually seen the creature transform from man to beast, as she stood watching terrified from the vantage point of a bridge. She described her sighting as follows to a local newspaper, quote, "It was stood upright one moment. The next it was down on all fours running like a dog. I was terrified. It bounded along on all fours, then stopped and reared up onto its back legs before running down the embankment towards the water. It vaulted 30 feet over to the other side and vanished up the embankment and over a wall into some allotments." End quote. Another woman who was out walking her dog in the same area also had an encounter with a very similar looking creature. As she was walking along the drain's waterway, she spotted a huge half-man, half-dog-like animal up ahead. Her dog refused to go any further and began shaking, as did the witness herself. She quickly made a hasty retreat as far away from the creature as possible, but in the minutes and hours after her sighting, the woman was struck by how much the upper portion of the beast's body was more wolf-like than human, even comparing it to the creature in the 1981 horror movie An American Werewolf in London. A truly horrific and frightening prospect. But we'll finish off this episode with a truly disturbing sighting, which was also reported in 2016 on the banks of the drain. A couple who were out walking one evening decided to take to one of the pathways that ran alongside the embankment of the drain. As they strolled along, they both noticed a large dark figure hunched over down by the waterline. They had no idea what this could be, but as they got closer and closer to it, they could make out that it was eating something quite large, and there was blood. Lots of blood. Frightened but intrigued, the couple decided to move closer to get a better look, which was when the figure stood up, and they got the shock of their lives. Standing right in front of them was a huge creature which they described as being like a werewolf. But the biggest shock was when they finally discovered what this beast had been eating. and was now holding on to. The remains of a large German shepherd hung limply over one of the creature's arms, and it wasn't going to let go. Standing at around 8 feet tall, this huge wolf-like animal sprinted off on its hind legs at great speed. It cleared a phenomenal distance in no time at all, and then easily cleared an 8-foot fence in one leap, and still holding the body of the German shepherd. The couple never saw the creature again, but never altered their story, and it was their sighting and experience that caused them to seek the advice of author and historian of Hull, Mike Covell. All the while that these sightings had been taking place, Mike had been collecting every single report, and even organized an actual werewolf hunt to try and track down whatever this creature was. More witnesses also came forward when this event was announced, and it was clear that the more people came forward, the easier it became for Mike to gather information. But it also became apparent that these witnesses needed assurance that they weren't alone, and that they shouldn't feel ridiculed. And while so far no evidence of this creature's existence has been positively found and identified, the sightings continue, just as they do with all of the strange beasts which we've spoken about in this episode. So after all of the stories which you've heard, the witness accounts, the environments in which these sightings have taken place, the credibility of the people involved, is it possible that there are creatures out there prowling and roaming the UK countryside which remain largely undiscovered? Is the UK a large enough territory to even support breeding populations of these types of creatures? And if so, why haven't we found evidence of nests, lairs? Why haven't we found the bodies of these creatures as they naturally die? But as with other elements of the paranormal and supernatural, are all of these witnesses lying? Are they simply misidentifying what they've seen with common animals? Surely not. Surely a small percentage of the witness reports require further investigation and research, but it's down to having the time and the money to allocate to such an exercise. The UK Minister of Agriculture, now known as the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, or DEFRA for short, seemingly held onto evidence which could have positively identified a large predatory cat. And remember, multiple witnesses have testified to seeing it. They even sent out sharpshooters from the Marines, so they must have felt that there were some truths behind the sightings. So, if DEFRA deliberately withheld evidence which could have possibly identified a number of these creatures, then the question has to be asked: what else are they withholding? And what else do they know that we don't? The great Danny Robbins, who hosts the podcast and TV series Uncanny, frequently asks the following: if ghosts don't exist, why do we see them? And I think this also rings true with these cryptid sightings. If these animals and beings don't exist, why do we see them? So the next time that you're in the countryside, or hiking through a forest, or indeed just waiting at a set of traffic lights, and something catches your eye, a shadow, a figure, something moving, prowling through the trees. You think it's a dog, a cat, a fox, but somehow you know it's not. It's something else, something you've never seen before. Remember then to keep your wits about you. Have a route back to safety, because the next person to have an encounter with a beast in the UK could be you.